What gender-based double standard infuriates you the most? This story comes from my community post shout-out to @DavidRichardson153. That man cannot treat young girls well in a completely platonic manner. I was in my mid-20s and at work. My best friend, who was in his mid-50s as well as being my coworker, was introducing a new part-timer, a local high school girl. I caught him moving to introduce her to me, hearing him say, "That's my name. He sometimes makes funny noises, but he's a good guy." I thought, oh, he asked for it. So when he then said, "Say hi, my name," I made a noise that I still have a hard time describing. The closest I can think of is that was like a sound made from an old wind-up toy being wound up, only higher pitched and sustained. It was a good laugh between us, and my friend and I quickly took her under our wing. Over the next 2 years, we sort of became the goofy uncles who she could trust with matters that she could not share with her parents. Those 2 years she spent with us were some of the best times from my 20s. Again, it was completely platonic, a fact that a lot of people, especially older women in the town we were in, just seemed to refuse to accept. It was like they could not accept that the two of us were not after any sort of favor from this high school girl, and the fact that they were the ones having these thoughts and not us farther showcases of the double standard. At the very least, her mother defended the two of us being in her life. The girl especially enjoyed it when I brought her to my place and introduced her to the 3 cats I had at the time. The last update I got from her, she has become a veterinarian and is doing well for herself. Story 2. I think that there is a little bit of a stigma surrounding stay-at-home fathers, which is not a huge deal but is a little frustrating. I'm a dad, and given the choice between working outside of the house and being a stay-at-home dad, I'd absolutely choose the latter. Unfortunately, that's not financially realistic for my family at this point in time, but if it was, I'd do it in an instant. I'm not suggesting I think being a stay-at-home parent is easier than working an outside job. I'd just prefer to spend as much time in dad mode as I can. I think it's something that people don't consider. If someone chooses to be a stay-at-home parent, they're given the, "Oh, lucky you don't have to work" kind of look. While it's generally more acceptable for a woman to do it, there's still a weird stigma surrounding the whole concept of actually wanting to be around to raise your children. Story 3. I'm getting married in 22 days. Every, no exceptions, professional involved with putting on our wedding has emailed my fiancée, but not me. She had to forcibly insert me into the conversations, even when I'm the one who sent the initial email. The wedding coordinator actually ignored her adding me to the email conversation the first time. She had to add me a second time. When we talk in person, they attempt to pull her off to the side and discuss the events away from me, since it'll be all up to her. Even some of our friends have found themselves referring to it as our big day before being glared at and reminded that it's both of us. People, I am half for the marriage. My opinions about this wedding matter, even if every bridal show or magazine or whatever ever makes it out that the bride demands solitary control. My fiancée, who has an anxiety disorder and gets extremely upset when she has to deal with too many open-ended questions, does not appreciate you taking me out of the conversation, and neither do I. Story 4. I'm in several bands. I play saxophone mostly, as you might assume from my name. As a woman, I get taken way less seriously. People assume that I'm with the band, not in it. The guys get asked, "What do you play?" I hardly ever get asked that. If I tell people I'm in a or the band, they almost always ask, "So, you sing?" And frequently I get, "So you sing?" Not even a question. Nothing against singing. Indeed, I do enjoy singing also, but the assumptions are annoying since I do see how gender-based they are. But just one example from last night. So we get into the venue and a guy asks if I need help with my stuff. I know a sincere "would you like some help" from a guy acting like he can't believe a woman is carrying something heavy and is being patronizing about it. It was the latter. I say, "No thanks, I got it," and smile politely. The guy then asks, "Which one of them is your boyfriend?" "None of them." Then the bartender yells at the guy and says, "Blank, stop hitting on the band." He replies, "I'm not hitting on the band, I'm hitting on the blonde." Thanks, dude. I try to maintain some sense of just being flattered by the stuff yelled my way by guys who want to get in my pants. That's how I deal with it. Sometimes even enjoy it, despite knowing that the guys in my band don't have to think about being on as an object when performing. They don't have as much pressure to smile back and be friendly and not a witch to the audience. They don't have to worry about not looking sexy enough to be a valued performer. They don't have to worry about looking middle-aged or not showing enough skin while worrying about their dress coming up too far during the show. But Jesus Christ, I still hate it when people take me less seriously as a musician. And while I'd like to think that I could just dress less feminine and be taken more seriously, that has its own set of problems. Being called a prude, a dyke, not being a desirable performer since women are expected to be the eye candy, etc. Story 5. Basically interacting with kids you don't know, or hell, even kids you do know. If a woman does it, she's being cute and stuff. When a guy does it, people expect him to be a creep. Like when you see a kid that has lost his or her parents in a store. When a female takes that kid by the hand to search for his parents, it's a nice gesture to comfort the kid. When a guy does it, he's a potential predator. For reference, I'm a 20-year-old guy. Almost all of my younger cousins are female. As is my duty as an older cousin, I'm often asked to babysit. I'm fine with this, as my little cousins are awesome. One day I'm at the park with my 4-year-old cousin, watching her play in a sandbox with other kids when it began to rain. So knowing that she can't run fast, I simply pick her up and began to walk to the car. She starts to cry because apparently she's never had as much fun in her life as she did when she was in that sandbox. Some lady sees me carrying off a crying child and decides that I'm obviously trying to abduct her, so she runs over and starts yelling at me. But this time the rain is really starting to come down, so I ignore her and continue walking. This apparently threw the woman for a loop as she got in front of me and tried to take my little cousin from me. Being a rational person, I shove her and put my little cousin into the car and drive off. Skip to 10 minutes later when I'm at home and cops knock on my door. Turns out the woman had followed me home and called the cops. Over the next hour, I had to tell the entire story no less than 4 times. The entire time, the woman is standing in the background yelling profanities at me, so I ended up calling my cousin's mother to come over and set everything straight. The worst part about this for me is the chilling effect. Anytime I interact with children, the very top thing on my mind is whether whatever's happening might possibly be viewed as creepy. So my play is consequently completely awkward and stilted because I can't just relax and have fun with kids. This applies even to the kids of people I know would never take something the wrong way. It's just ingrained and I can't let it go. I could dismiss a few crazies, but the whole culture has conspired to prevent me from playing with kids. It's a joke. You know what else is annoying? It's okay for a man to be around kids as long as he's handsome. Maybe you should watch that video of mine. It will get you riled up. Story 6. This will get buried, but this has been something that was on my mind a lot. When I was 15, I was on my local soccer team, an all-girls team. We had a very religious girl on our team, but man, could she play. She led our team, both in spirit and in score, and we were just lost without her. She was tiny, but she was fast and strong. Every Sunday game we had, though, she couldn't attend. She had to go to church. Her brother, though, could play his games right next to us in the same field. We asked her why, and she'd say, his game was more important than mine. They needed him more. We'd always shrug it off and interpreted it to mean that since the boys were having a tournament, his parents would let him play and miss church. Would come the final year end game. It was a Sunday. This was a make it or break it game, difference between first and second place. This was the most important game of the year, for both the boys and the girls teams. We had been working up to this tournament all summer and we were getting ready to wrap it up. The finals fell on a Sunday morning. She had to go to church, her brother attended. The entire time she'd been saying her brother's game was more important, she'd meant because her parents believed that sports were more important to a boy's life. For him, they were serious. For her, they were a silly little game. It may not be the double standard that affects me the most, but knowing how well that girl played, she could have gone pro. Easily. If not in soccer, then in track and field. Those parents may have ruined one of Canada's future greatest athletes by showing her that, in their eyes, her accomplishments as an athlete weren't to be proud of any more than a kid being good at board games. That's pretty freaking infuriating. Story 7. What infuriates me about double standards is that most people use it as a way to bash the offending gender instead of looking for ways to fix the problem. Or people will come on and say, as a man or woman, I don't do this. Sorry about my gender. And apologize for your gender. Your gender did nothing wrong. Society as a whole did something wrong. Good news is, these double standards can be fixed. It will take time, but it can be done. A common one I see is, why do you have to pay for everything? It's not even as common today as people make it seem. Don't want to pay for everything? Don't date a person that expects you to. If they expect you to, despite the fact that you don't wish to do so, then you should dump them. Not begrudgingly do something you don't want to. This can be said for most double standards. You don't have to conform to them because you think everyone else is. Part of how you break double standards is by not conforming to them. Consider how used to a dad being a stay-at-home parent was considered bad. Nowadays, it's definitely not as bad as it used to be, and it continues to get better every year that goes by. All double standards make me sad. However, they can be changed. It's a slow process. Bashing the offending gender won't change it. Story 8. If a woman hits a man, he's expected to ignore it or not say anything. If a man hits a woman, instant scandal. I was at a bar one night with my buddy and his self-entitled girlfriend. We decided to close our tabs and leave. My buddy tipped our waitress really well because she gave us fantastic service. His girlfriend asked why he tipped her so much. I jokingly said with a smile on my face, maybe he likes her. She wound up and slapped me so hard that it made my face turn and made my head lean to the side. Every white knight in the bar was ready to pounce on me like I was the one who did something wrong. I couldn't even get her to apologize because I had to leave the bar immediately while guys were coming up to instigate me. She chased me out into the parking lot and tried to fight me while my buddy was apologizing to me and holding her back. That's just one of many times she did something like that, not just to me. I stopped hanging out with him until my buddy broke up with her. I have another one. Counter story. My friend, my roommate, his girlfriend, her roommate, and I all go out. My friend is a great guy. His girlfriend is an absolute sweetheart. The roommate is a very pretty girl who everyone knows to be spoiled. Expects everyone to pay for her, if found out later. Flaunts rules because she knows she can get away with it, etc. but to her credit, she's a spitting image of Heather Graham, the one that was in the Austin Powers movie. So we go to a few bars and end up at this club in DC called 1223, spelled out like MCVXXIII, or whatever that translates to. So we're in there drinking, and I open a tab separate from the rest of them, i.e. I order a drink alone at the bar while they're talking or something somewhere else. So what does this girl do? All night she puts drinks on my tab without telling me or thanking me or anything, and she gets more and more obnoxious. I remember one thing in particular that cemented in my mind. I never want to hang out with her again. She started making fun of homeless people, in general. I thought that was extraordinarily callous, but it's a big, loud club and I can barely hear her, and basically I'm trying to get through the night so I can never see her again. Incidentally, I wasn't drinking all that much that night because I was the designated driver. So we get ready to leave, I go pay my bar tab, and you can guess what happened. I grab the check and go confront her, asking for her part of it, but 90%. She laughs in my face and tells me something along the lines of, "You'll never get in my pants like that." Then she leads our group towards the exit. My friends later told me they didn't know this was happening. I give it one last shot. I tell her I'm going to make the bar split up the tab, and if she doesn't pay her part, she can deal with him. Basically, I'm saying I'm not covering for you, pay your own tab. This is where her lovely idiotic facade breaks down and she goes full-on crazy. She full-on slaps me right there at the entrance to the club in full view of dozens of people in line. She hit me so hard, so perfectly, that it resounded in the little airlock area in between the outer door and inner door. My friend and his girlfriend are standing there with their mouths open, and she drew her hand back again. The current of red just came down and I backhanded that witch right in her mouth. She kind of pinballed off the outer door but remained standing. I gave her about 10%. I'm not saying she deserved it. I'm not saying hitting her was justified. As with my size advantage, I probably could have ended her. But man, did it feel good to get back at her. I apologized later to her roommate, i.e. my friend's girlfriend, but pretty much the three of us ended up never talking to her again. And the girlfriend moved in with us a short time later. Incidentally, the whole line standing to get in gasped when she hit me, then gasped again when I hit her. I guess we had some pretty good drama that night. This dude's face is like a slap magnet. Everyone should just stop hitting each other and just hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Didn't expect that plug, did ya? Now let's get back to the stories. Story 9. This is a bit more subtle and hard to describe than most of these, but it bugs me. Basically, it's the difference in how girls can act around their friends and guys can't. Girls can be comfortable with each other, physically, without being accused of being lesbians, whereas guys have to be arm's length except when joking. It didn't used to be this way, historically. It wasn't until homophobia became a big public issue that guys were made to feel awkward around each other. Humans are social creatures, and I think this is really unbalancing some men. People should be allowed to be comfortable around their friends. I had a conversation with my mother about stuff when my friend posted a video on FB about bromance. I had to spend 30 minutes assuring her that I'm straight, okay with gay people, and that no, I'm not gay just because me and that friend are close and neither is he, and that bromance is not a sexual relationship kind of thing, and that I'm okay with gay people hitting on me since I can just politely decline them, and that I should not have to be offended if they do hit on me. Do you know how uncomfortable it is to have to say the word intimacy and discuss sexuality with or to your mother? There's no way to prepare someone for something like that. Story 10. I'm a female doctor and I frequently fly with a few items of medical equipment, stethoscope, otoscope, etc. I put it in its own separate bag or bin because they always search it. The TSA agent, while searching the bag, will ask everyone else in line, "Sir, are you a doctor?" before finally turning to me and asking, "Miss, are you a nurse?" Even my mom's a doctor and my dad was a house husband. One time I got sick in elementary school, so I went to the nurse who was going to call my parents to come get me. The nurse asked me where I could call my mom and said she was probably busy at work and she should call my dad. The nurse ignored that and asked where my mom worked. The intensive care nursery at blah blah medical center. Okay, who should I ask for? Dr. Zapper. No, you mean Mrs. Zapper. She's a doctor. No, you mean a nurse. No, she's a doctor. So she looks up the number in the phone book and calls the ICN. The receptionist answered and texted in the 1990s corded telephone. I could hear both ends of the conversation. Hello, may I speak to one of your nurses, Mrs. Zapper? The receptionist laughed at her for a good 5 or 10 seconds, then says, You mean Dr. Zapper? Is one of her kids sick? Just a minute. When my mom got on the phone and the school nurse explained the situation, my mom was like, Okay, well, I'm doing rounds right now. Why don't you call her father? As far as I know, a lot of people love female doctors. Wank, wank. Story 11. We'll probably get married, but this literally happened today during a school assembly. So my school has a tradition called Winter Wishes, where everyone gets to write a wish on a slip of paper, and the student staff of the school grant that wish at the winter assembly. Most of the wishes were pretty lame, though this one guy wished some cabbage to give to a teacher. That was cool. And of course, near the end, they get to the special wishes. 2 girls received these. The first girl wanted Mr. School Name Here to propose to her with a candy ring. My school has a male beauty pageant thing. This guy was the winner. The second wanted a bunch of the jocks to surround her and serenade her with a beautiful song. Both wishes were granted to these girls. Everyone applauds this.
At the end of the assembly, my friend comes up to me, says he wishes they did his wish, and laughs. I asked him what it was, and he said he wanted one of the cheerleaders to present him with a rose. We laugh, and some girl who was next to us looks at him, in the most witchy tone possible says, "Creep," and walks away. So it's okay for girls to ask a group of guys to sing for them and propose to them, and everyone thinks it's cute. But when a guy wants something similar, it's creepy. If you ask me. Story 12. This last semester, I was taking a class called Ethnic and Diversity Studies. We had to do a presentation on a topic of our choice in any society in the world. This one girl does a presentation on the equality of the sexes, and halfway through her presentation, she was talking about men getting paid a quarter more per dollar than women. She said, "I think it's lame that women get paid less even though women are better at pretty much everything than men." So after the presentation, I confronted her about it, asking her, "What did you mean halfway through your conversation when you said that women are better at everything than men?" She said, "Well, they are." I said, "You realize you just did a presentation on gender equality, right?" At this point, everyone in the class laughs, and I'm the only one in there sitting there just totally pissed off at this arrogant woman who thinks she's better than me at everything she does. But I kept my cool and said, "All I'm trying to say is that if you're doing a presentation on gender equality, then you should probably not talk about how you think women are better than men at everything they do. It doesn't demand too much respect or credibility." Well, that is it for this video. Hope it didn't rile you up too much, but I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. Men, what are some double standards you had to deal with? You won't believe story 3 is accepted in society. See you in that video.